Welcome to our deep dive into Progressive Insurance. We'll be taking a look at a bunch of different sources to see if it's a good fit for your portfolio.
Well, Progressive has a pretty long history, actually. It goes all the way back to 1937.
Wow.
Yeah, and they've been kind of pioneers in the industry, especially being one of the first to offer insurance online.
Makes sense.
So, that forward-thinking approach has probably been a big part of their success.
For sure. And speaking of success, one thing that kind of points to that is their recent acquisition of Protective Insurance Company.
Right.
That happened in February 2021 for a cool $338 million.
Yeah, that's not small potatoes.
A big move.
Yeah. And it really signals their intent to kind of, expand into the commercial vehicle insurance market.
And acquisitions like that can be a big driver of growth.
Absolutely.
But they also carry some risks, too. So it's important to keep an eye on how well Progressive integrates Protective
You're sure?
to really make sure they use this acquisition to their advantage.
Yeah, and how it affects their overall performance.
Exactly.
Mm.
And to understand that a little bit better,
Yeah.
I think it's important to look at their current financials.
Yeah. One of the metrics a lot of investors use is the Zacks rank.
Okay.
And Progressive right now, it holds a Zacks rank 3,
Okay.
which basically translates to a hold recommendation.
I see.
So analysts are thinking it's going to perform kind of in line with the general market over the coming months.
So maybe not a stock for someone looking for, big short-term gains.
Yeah, probably not.
But what about the long-term growth potential?
That's where you got to look at things like the company's value score and growth scorecard.
Okay.
Progressive's got a value score of B,
Got it.
which indicates that it might be priced attractively for value investors.
Interesting.
And then they also have an A on their growth scorecard.
Wow, an A.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Which suggests that there's a lot of potential for them to expand and increase their earnings in the future.
Very interesting. So it sounds like those scores paint a pretty positive picture.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you kind of break down what might be contributing to that A for growth?
Well, those recent acquisitions, like the one we talked about with Protective Insurance,
Yeah.
they're definitely a factor.
Right.
That kind of expansion into new markets, new specialized offerings, that can lead to more diverse revenue streams.
Makes sense.
And then beyond just the acquisitions, they were early adopters of technology, and
Yeah.
they've continued to invest in it, especially their user-friendly online platforms and mobile apps.
Mhm.
They've probably attracted a younger demographic of customers with that, which contributes to their growth potential as well.
So they're really positioning themselves well for continued success in a market that's constantly changing.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's talk about their stock performance. What's the momentum looking like right now?
They've got an A momentum score, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. 2.
And then if you look at what Wall Street analysts are saying, they have an average price target of $282.82,
Okay.
which is about 13% higher than the current price. So that suggests there's potential for the stock to keep moving up.
So it sounds like a pretty promising investment.
It does, but it's important to remember that, like with any investment, there are risks.
Of course.
Hmm.
What are some of the downsides that investors should be aware of?
The insurance industry is very competitive,
Yeah.
and new companies could come in, or existing competitors could start, cutting their prices aggressively.
Yeah.
And that could hurt Progressive's market share.
Makes sense. And what about economic factors? Could those have an impact?
Yeah, absolutely. Things like inflation or rising interest rates,
Mm-hmm.
they could affect their profits
For sure.
and ultimately their stock performance.
So it's not a sure thing,
No,
but an investment that really requires you to weigh the potential and the risks.
exactly.
Okay, so far we've talked about Progressive's history, their recent acquisitions and how they're performing financially.
Right.
Now let's dive into their valuation a little bit.
Okay.
Is this stock a good deal right now?
Well, their value score of B, that suggests it might be undervalued.
Okay.
But to really figure that out, we need to look at their financial ratios,
Okay.
like their price to earnings ratio, which is often called the PE ratio.
Okay.
It's currently at 18.55,
Okay.
which is actually a bit lower than the average for the industry.
So that means they might be a bargain compared to their competitors.
Yeah, potentially.
Are there other ratios that we should be considering as well?
Yeah, the price to book ratio is another good one.
Okay.
It's also called the PB ratio,
Right.
and that one sits at 5.34.
Okay.
Now, their PE ratio looks good, but this higher than average PB ratio suggests that investors are willing to pay a premium for Progressive's assets.
So their earnings seem attractive relative to their price,
Right.
but their assets might be considered a little pricey.
Yeah, it's all about looking at the whole picture.
Right. So we really need to look at different factors to get a full understanding of their valuation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now let's move on to how Progressive returns value to its shareholders, specifically through things like dividends and share buybacks.
All right, so their dividend policy, it's a variable one,
Okay,
meaning the payouts can fluctuate depending on their earnings.
I see.
So it might not be the best fit for investors who really need that consistent income,
Right.
but their dividend yield right now is around 2.5%,
Okay.
and they have a history of increasing their dividends over time.
So even though the dividend income isn't fixed, there's still a potential for those payments to grow.
Exactly.
And what about share buybacks? What's their approach there?
They've actually been buying back a lot of their own shares.
Okay.
In 2023 alone, they put over $2 billion towards buybacks.
Wow, that's a good sign.
Yeah, it usually means the company thinks their stock is currently undervalued.
So it shows a commitment to giving back to their shareholders
Yes.
and confidence in their future prospects.
Exactly.
Okay. To get a better sense of their market positioning, let's talk about their market share in the insurance world.
Okay, so Progressive is the third largest auto insurer in the U.S., with a market share of about 13%.
Okay.
And they've steadily increased that share over time.
So they're a big player in the auto insurance space.
Yeah, they are.
But do they offer other types of insurance?
Yeah, they do. Auto insurance is definitely their main thing.
Right.
But they've also expanded into things like homeowners, renters, motorcycle, and even commercial auto insurance.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
No, they're diversifying.
Right.
Right.
Which makes them more well-rounded.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about ESG.
Okay.
Environmental, social, and governance factors.
Right.
How does Progressive stack up in that area?
They've gotten some recognition for their ESG efforts.
Okay.
They've made commitments to reducing their carbon footprint.
Right.
They've implemented diversity and inclusion programs and established strong corporate governance practices.
So they're taking steps in the right direction?
Yeah, they are. But of course, there's always room for improvement, like with
Yeah.
any company.
For sure.
Yeah.
Continued progress and transparency in those areas are going to be key to maintaining investor confidence.
Definitely. So in the last part, we spent some time talking about Progressive's, financial performance, their acquisitions, and how they're positioned in the insurance market.
Right.
Now I think it's a good time to shift our focus to their innovation pipeline
Okay.
and see how they're adapting to the constantly changing world of technology.
Yeah, Progressive has a reputation for being pretty forward-thinking when it comes to tech in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples of their key initiatives in that area?
Well, one of the most interesting ones is their use of telematics,
Okay.
which is basically technology that tracks and monitors driving behavior.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they have this program called Snapshot,
Okay.
where drivers can either install a device in their car or use a mobile app.
Okay.
And it records all this data, like how much they're driving, how fast they're going, how hard they brake, all that kind of stuff.
I see. And that data allows for a more personalized approach to insurance, right?
Exactly. Based on that data, Progressive can offer custom insurance rates.
So like safe drivers would get rewarded with lower premiums.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
It's a win-win, really,
Yeah.
because it encourages people to drive more safely,
Right.
and it also helps Progressive improve their risk assessment models.
It's pretty cool how technology can incentivize positive behavior and make risk assessment more accurate at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any other areas where Progressive is using technology in innovative ways?
They're also putting a lot of resources into artificial intelligence, or AI,
Of course. Everyone is these days.
and machine learning.
Makes sense.
And they're using those technologies to make their claims process more efficient, to enhance their fraud detection systems, and to personalize the customer service experience.
So it's not just about using the latest and greatest tech.
Right.
It's about finding ways to integrate it into their core operations. To
Exactly.
make things better for everyone involved.
Yes. And that forward-thinking approach is crucial in an industry like insurance that's changing so rapidly.
Speaking of those changes, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about some of the broader trends that are shaping the future of insurance.
Okay.
One that comes to mind is InsurTech, which is basically the convergence of insurance and technology.
Right. It's a big one.
How is that impacting the industry as a whole?
Well, there are all these startups that are using technology to offer new insurance products and services.
It's disrupting the traditional model.
It is. But Progressive hasn't just sat back and watched it happen.
So they're not afraid of the competition.
No. They actually partnered with several InsurTech startups and invested in new technologies themselves.
That's a smart strategy.
It is.
They're staying ahead of the curve by embracing the changes.
Exactly.
Okay, so besides InsurTech, what other trends are we seeing?
Well, personalization is becoming increasingly important.
Customers want insurance that's tailored to their specific needs.
Exactly. They're not satisfied with those one-size-fits-all policies anymore.
That seems to be a common trend across industries.
It is.
How is Progressive responding to this demand for more personalized insurance?
They're using data and technology to create flexible and customizable insurance solutions.
Okay.
So they can offer policies that really align with individual lifestyles and risk profiles.
It sounds like they're putting the customer first.
They are, and that's definitely a positive development for the industry.
Are there any other important trends we should touch on?
Sustainability is another big one.
Right. People are more aware of environmental issues than ever before.
And they want to support companies that share their values.
So how is Progressive addressing those concerns?
We talked earlier about their commitment to reducing their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
They're also offering incentives for customers who choose electric or hybrid vehicles.
Right.
And they're promoting environmentally friendly practices within their own operations.
It sounds like they're taking some meaningful steps towards sustainability.
Yeah, definitely. But like we said before, there's always room for improvement.
Right. Continued progress and transparency in that area are going to be key for Progressive.
Absolutely.
Well, in this part, we've really explored Progressive's innovative use of technology
We have.
and how they're navigating the changing landscape of the insurance world.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Progressive Insurance. We've talked about their financials, their acquisitions, their innovation pipeline, and the trends that are shaping the industry.
Right.
Now let's try to bring it all together and consider what really matters for an investor who's thinking about adding Progressive to their portfolio.
Right. So based on what we've seen, there are definitely some strong points that make Progressive look pretty attractive.
Okay, like what?
Well, first of all, they have a really long track record of growth.
Yeah.
And that's not easy in such a competitive market. So it shows that they know how to adapt and succeed.
Right.
And as we talked about earlier, they've been consistently growing their market share,
Oh.
and they hold a really strong position in the auto insurance market,
Yeah.
which suggests they have a lot of stability and the potential to grow even more.
Right. And their commitment to innovation is another big plus.
Absolutely.
They were early adopters of things like telematics,
Right.
and they're investing strategically in artificial intelligence. So it seems like they're really thinking ahead.
Yeah, and that could give them a big advantage in the long run.
Okay. But like you said before, with any investment, there are risks.
Of course.
What are some of the challenges that Progressives might face?
Well, the insurance industry is just inherently competitive.
Yeah.
You never know when a new player might come in and shake things up,
Right.
or when existing competitors might get really aggressive with their pricing.
And that could impact Progressive's market share.
Yeah, exactly.
And we also can't forget about those external economic factors.
Right, things like inflation and rising interest rates.
They could definitely affect Progressive's bottom line.
Yeah, and ultimately their stock price.
So it's a reminder that no investment is completely risk-free. So what advice would you give to someone who's seriously considering investing in Progressive?
Well, first I'd say do your homework.
Yeah.
Really take a close look at their financial statements.
Okay.
Dig into their profitability, their debt levels, and their risk management strategies.
Go beyond the surface level.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about their technology initiatives?
Well, it's important to make sure that those investments in things like telematics and AI are actually paying off.
Okay.
Are they leading to a better customer experience, improved efficiency, and most importantly, increased profits?
Right. It's not just about using technology for the sake of using it. It
Exactly.
has to make a real difference.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, what about the competitive landscape?
Well, you have to understand who Progressive's biggest rivals are.
Right.
And what they're doing.
And what about those smaller insurtech companies? Are they a threat?
Yeah, they could be. So you have to be aware of that potential for disruption.
It's about getting a clear picture of the whole industry.
Yeah. And how Progressive fits into it.
Right. So this deep dive has been a great overview of Progressive Insurance.
I hope so.
But it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
We always encourage our listeners to do their own research,
Absolutely.
explore the resources that are available,
Yeah.
and make informed decisions based on their own investment goals and risk tolerance.
Right.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive and you want to learn more about other companies or sectors,
Yeah.
be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel
Right.
and leave us a comment telling us what stocks you'd like us to cover in future episodes.
We're always looking for new ideas.
Exactly. All right, well, that wraps up our deep dive into Progressive Insurance.
It does.
I hope you found it insightful and helpful.
We did our best.
And we look forward to diving into another stock with you soon.
Sounds good.